الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله وهو يتولى الصالحين الحمد لله الواحد الأحد الفرد الصمد نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونسترضيه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له شهادة عليها نحيا وعليها نموت ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم أرسله الله هاديا وبشيرا أرسله الله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله الأطهار وأصحابه الأخيار وتابعيهم الأبرار بإحسان إلى يوم الدين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله وأصحابه حق قدره ومقداره العظيم وبعد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما ثم أما بعد. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and we bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his final messenger. I advise you, my brothers and sisters, to have taqwa, to be mindful of Allah in all of your affairs. As for what follows, I want to express the gratitude and I appreciate everyone's patience in the last two khutbahs. May Allah reward you. It is not easy to hear criticism, but when people do, it means they have a great faith and patience. So jazakumullahu khair for your patience in the last two khutbahs. And in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are things that we need to consider. The first is that it's not always an action that we have to take or something that we need to do in order for us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In some cases, refraining from action, remaining inactive, is a form of worshiping God. And the second is that actions themselves are not the only thing that matters. The context of our actions, the surroundings, where we take the actions, where we worship God, also does matter. And the third is that we always have to keep our eyes and remain focused on the results of our actions. And this all is in regard to our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does this all mean? This is what we are going to look at during the khutbah, inshallah. And first, let me share with you some good news, some glad tidings from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as narrated by Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. عن أبي موسى الأشعري رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله ليطلع في ليلة النصف من شعبان فيغفر لجميع خلقه إلا لمشرك أو مشاح. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet narrates, looks down on the night of the middle of the months of Sha'ban and forgives and pardons all of his creation, apart from an idol worshipper or mushahin. An idol worshipper is easy to understand, but a mushahin is someone who's in their hearts are hard feelings and ill feelings for other people. So brothers and sisters, in order for us to be in the company of those whom Allah pardons and forgives in these blessed months of Sha'ban, let us inshallah forgive others that we may have had mushahana with, that we may have had conflicts with. They might be family members, they might be friends. Reach out to people before the months of Ramadan, before Eid comes. Prepare yourself, prepare your heart to receive the blessings of the months of Ramadan by forgiving others, so that you yourself can receive the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ar-Rahimuna yarhamhumur Rahman, irhamu man fil ard, يرحمكم من في السماء. The month of Ramadan is a month of mercy. And the Prophet said, those who have mercy in their hearts receive mercy from Allah, the most merciful, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah have mercy on us all, and may Allah enable us to forgive others so that we may be ready to receive His forgiveness, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next is the idea of action versus remaining inactive. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا بقي نصف من شعبان فلا تصوموا إذا بقي نصف من شعبان فلا تصوموا رواه الترمذي وقال حديث حسن صحيح. The Prophet says, when the month of Sha'ban comes to its, to its half, do not fast anymore beyond this point. And that's for many reasons. Some of the reasons is that we want to separate between Sha'ban, which is the month that comes before Ramadan, and the month of Ramadan itself. We don't want to continue to fast and blend in the months of Ramadan and its unique place in our hearts and in our lives with the months before it and the months after it. We don't want to do this. We want to take a break from fasting and make the months of Ramadan more unique as we receive it. So the scholar said, if you don't have a habit that you maintain throughout your life of fasting every Monday and Thursday, and the month of Sha'ban has come to its middle part, do not start or attempt to fast. Give yourself a break from fasting. Do other acts of worship, but do not fast, so that you prepare yourself for the months of Ramadan. And what that teaches us is that in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not always doing something that pleases Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not always doing something that is considered an act of worship. Sometimes refraining from an action, refraining from doing something is in itself an act of worshiping God. Take for example someone who is a traveler. Allah gives them the license of not fasting. When you don't fast through your travels, this is something that you are worshiping God and following God's command. When a woman who has an excuse to not fast and not pray, by not fasting and not praying, she is worshiping God. She is in an action of worship by refraining from fasting and from prayers. And so it's not always about what we do, sometimes it's also about what we don't do. The Prophet ﷺ taught us, as in the hadith, قال سمعت رسول الله صلى عن كعب بن عاصم قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول ليس من البر الصيام في سفر. It is not an act of righteousness to fast while you are traveling. It's not an act of righteousness to fast while you are traveling. And yes, there are details, or the scholars speak about this in regard of fiqh, but in regard of your relationship and spirituality and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not an act of righteousness to fast while you are traveling. Refraining from fasting while traveling is an act of righteousness. الضرر يزال والمشقة تجلب التيسير. When there is harm, the harm needs to be avoided. And when there are hardship, it brings ease. So traveling is a hardship. And the ease is not fasting. The ease is praying the 4 rak'ahs too, and so on and so forth. So that's the first part, brothers and sisters. The second is, in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if we decide to do something, to worship Allah, the context is very important. Listen to this hadith, in which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was asked by Usama ibn Zayd, قال قلت يا رسول الله لم أرك تصوم من شهر من الشهور ما تصوم في شعبان قال ذاك شهر تغفل الناس فيه عنه. Usama ibn Zayd asks the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the months of Ramadan, in the months of Sha'ban, you fast more than any other months outside of the months of Ramadan. And the answer of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was, ذاك شهر تغفل الناس فيه. This is a month in which people are, they become heedless, because they are excited for the months of Ramadan, they prepare for the months of Ramadan, and they forget about the merits of the months of Sha'ban itself and what you can do in it. And so the context here is that you worship God while other people are heedless of worshiping God subhanahu wa ta'ala. that you are taking action and getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while other people are not. And that's not something that we only do in our worship, but in life in general. When other people are not taking actions, for example, to protect the environment, we should be taking actions to protect the environment. When other people are not taking actions to establish social justice, we should be, as Muslims, taking actions to worship, to establish social justice in our communities, so that we don't get, we are not in the company of people who remain silent. And therefore, the context of our actions is very important. And third is the intent, or that we need to focus on the result, not just the actions itself. Listen to the Prophet ﷺ when he says, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَرُبَّ قَائِمٌ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ قِيَامِهِ إِلَّا السَّهْرُ. Beautiful hadith. There are people, the Prophet says, who fast and get nothing from their fast except hunger and thirst. And there are those who pray and they get nothing from prayers except being sleepless during the night. Except being sleepless during the night. And therefore the Prophet is teaching us that our eyes should be kept on the results of our actions, the results of our worship. We get together and we pray and we fast and we pay zakah, but still inside of us, we remain the same. Nothing changes. It doesn't affect us beyond these four walls. And that's why when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to think for ourselves, what does this worship mean to me? How is it going to change me? And that's why I wanted to bring this hadith and this point plenty before the months of Ramadan, so we start thinking about our intention. Every one of us should individually think about, why are we fasting this year? What is it that we want to change? Sure, you are going to be hungry and thirsty. And the Prophet says, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صَوْمِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَالْعَطَشُ. Maybe you fast and you take nothing from your fast other than being hungry and thirsty. And don't take me wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't take the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will appreciate this. He will appreciate the fact that you have refrained from eating and drinking and became hungry and thirsty for His own sake. But the Prophet ﷺ does not want us to be people who are satisfied with the minimum. Does not want us to be people who are, who are satisfied with something easy to get. He wants us to have higher goals. He wants us to shoot for the stars. So that when you are fasting, ask yourself, beyond being hungry and thirsty, what can my fasting do? And there are few ideas I can share with you, but it has to be something personal to yourself. It has to be something personal to yourself. رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صَوْمِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَالْعَطَشُ وَرُبَّ قَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ قِيَامِهِ إِلَّا السَّهْرُ. And maybe someone who prays, but they take nothing from their prayers other than being sleepless at night. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العلي العظيم لي ولكم ادعوا الله وأنتم موقنون بالإجابة. Pray to your Lord and have faith that your prayers will be accepted, inshallah. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونسترضيه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأما بعد. Brothers and sisters, the months of Ramadan, which is upon us in few weeks, it will begin, inshallah. And the main purpose of fasting during Ramadan is to attain taqwa. And taqwa does not really mean fear. A lot of people say taqwa means fear. Fear is khawf. But taqwa is much more higher than this. It's much more noble than fear. Taqwa means being aware of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being aware of your relationship with the people around you. Being aware of your relationship with your own self. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "Man sama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbihi." The one who fasts during the months of Ramadan with faith and sincerity, seeking the reward from no one other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will have his past sins forgiven. Imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbihi. And then another thing that we can learn from Ramadan, other than having sincerity, is feeling the pain of other people. We voluntarily give غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. And then another thing that we can learn from Ramadan, other than having sincerity, is feeling the pain of other people. We voluntarily give up food and drinking for a limited amount of time. But there are people, brothers and sisters, not far away from us, who give up food unwillingly, not voluntarily, for unlimited amounts of time. And if you think that this is a reality that is far away from us, just yesterday I had a meeting with a group that consisted of a few Christian churches, and they serve meals during the months during the summer months only, in the downtown area, in a church called, I think, St. Paul or something. And they serve it in limited amounts of hours. And last year only, they have fed up to 15,000 people in just 2 or 3 months. And the majority of these 15,000 people are children who were hungry, who were not served meals in their homes. And this is something we, as Muslims, as fasting is a big part of our religion, should be thinking about. We should be thinking about. And it's ran by people who are volunteering. They are not paid. They are not paid money. They volunteer an hour or two every single day. Every church will take 1 week or two, and they will have 7 or 6 people that will volunteer daily for 1 or 2 weeks, for just 1 or 3 hours. And I think as Muslims, we can do this. We are able to do this, because this is a result of our fasting as well. Our fasting is not just about giving up food and water and being hungry and thirsty. We don't want to be part of those who the Prophet ﷺ said of them, رُبَّ صَائِمٌ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صَوْمِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَالْعَطْشُ. Maybe someone who fasts and take nothing from their fasting other than hunger and thirst. We should make our fasting affect us beyond that, being hungry and thirsty. Maybe we should feel the pain of other people around us who feel the same feelings that we experience the same experiences that we have in the months of Ramadan, but they do so throughout the year. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to reach the months of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to reach the months of Ramadan and to worship Him subhanahu wa ta'ala properly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our worship affect us and change us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our worship to Him affect us and change us. And brothers, if you think that feeding people is like a Christian thing that churches do. No, it's not a Christian thing that churches do. It's a thing that God commands people to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَىٰ حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. He says, Allah in the Quran, this is not from, I'm not quoting to you from the Bible. They feed the food, عَلَىٰ حُبِّهِ, even though they love it and they want this food for themselves. Or, they do so lovingly, as another understanding of the ayah. Miskeen, and for those who are in need. Miskeen and wayatim, and for those who are orphans, the children. Wa'asir, and those who are captivated, people who are in prison, for example. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ. The Prophet sallallahu أطعموا الطعام وأفشوا السلام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخلوا الجنة بسلام. You feed the hungry and you spread peace and you pray at night when people are asleep. تدخلوا الجنة بسلام. These are not the words of the Buddha. These are the words of the Prophet ﷺ, telling his community, feed hungry people, be in the forefront of feeding others and healing others, and being in the help and in the needs, where others are in need, they find you. And this is the month of Ramadan that reminds us of these meanings, brothers and sisters. So take your time until the months begin. Take your time. You have a couple of weeks. Think to yourself, what can you do to be with those people? الَّذِينَ يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَىٰ حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. Those who feed others. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to reach the months of Ramadan. And those who are the students who have exams, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the exams easy for them. May Allah make their finals easy for them. May Allah